This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey guys, welcome to the WWE Podcast here, and let's talk Survivor Series WarGames that took place last night. An interesting PLE. I surveyed the field a bit on X, which, by the way, you can follow me at wrestling_audio or just search the WWE Podcast. And I've had many of you tell me it was underwhelming, particularly the first half that contained a lot of botches, and it did, and the second half was better, but it left you wanting more. That's the general feeling I got, and I have to say, after watching the PLE myself, I can concur with that feeling, particularly the last half of that, where you're waiting for interference. I called for Seth Rollins. He didn't show. I called for potentially The Rock. He didn't show. And then the very, very outside chance of Brock Lesnar. So at least I was 0 for 3 on any of those returns, and we got what we thought we would in terms of results, minus maybe the Shinsuke, the United States Championship victory, which, to be fair, is probably the right call now that it happened. Now we have to see how it plays out, and follow-up is super key. In fact, it is more important on the follow-up than it is the moment, because moments come and go. But what you do with that moment, how you capitalize on that moment, what your plan is for said superstars, that is how you determine the ultimate success or failure of a championship run. And with Shinsuke Nakamura winning here, I'm hopeful for his character. He seems to be the guy that talks a good game, looks dangerous, but you know he's going to fall flat. And I thought that this would be the same. And we didn't get that with Shinsuke and with LA Knight. And yes, LA Knight's title run wasn't super long. I think we've been duped into believing that Triple H will forever and always be about long title runs. Although he did that with the Intercontinental title, he's also done the same thing. So it's nice to see that it's not always about, a 6 to 12 month run. And having LA Knight lose here is not going to hurt him. Shinsuke is the one that's going to benefit. If he was to come back with this darker character, a really badass altered version of his music, which I'm a big fan of, and then loses clean to LA Knight, or loses in some kind of wonky way that, is ultimately still going to end up with Shinsuke not winning, well, it would have done more damage to a character that desperately needs help. And that's Shinsuke Nakamura, and not needs help in terms of him being a professional in the ring or even understanding his character or anything like that. They've solved the riddle of how to bypass the struggles of the English language with subtitles, and doing an excellent job of doing some video packages for him. And that proved extremely effective during the Seth Rollins program a number of months ago. So he's got all the pieces there. It's just the machine behind him that has always seemingly been, we'll get you close, but we know, and the fans know, you're not going to actually reach the mountaintop. Well, he did, at least the United States Championship, and I'm happy for him. So we'll get to that in a little bit more detail a little bit later. We will talk, of course, about every match in detail here, and overall what I thought about the PLE, and give it a grade at the end, or a rating. And just so stay tuned for that. But I want to first welcome and thank all of the new patrons to the show. You guys have made it a lot of fun. The Discord chat I did pop in for a little bit was entertaining, to say the least. You guys make it very lively. And you can join the Discord chat and the patrons if you want to get an ad-free experience and get everything else, including the exclusive After Dark show. Head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. And you can also check out my new podcast that I do. I'll be dropping a new episode, hopefully tonight. And it's called The War on Truth. It's about politics and culture. So I'll just leave it at that. If you're interested in that, check it out on every podcast that app and outlet that you can. And there is also a Patreon for The War on Truth. It's called patreon.com/The War on Truth. Okay, so let's dive into the show here. Let's start at the beginning. As Michael Cole welcomed us to the 38th Survivor Series, He said the show is sold out, as you would hope, and there were 17,000 in attendance. Corey Graves on commentary, and Cole then read through the WarGames rules, while a graphic also listed the rules. And then the siren sounded for the WarGames cage as it was lowered around the two rings, while pyro flares shot up for the ringside floor. Very cinematic. Entrances then took place, and they had shark cages set up on the main floor next to the entrance. Bianca comes out, followed by Naomi, Io Sky, Bayley, and Rhea. And then Cole noted that it was Naomi's first WarGames, and he added that Sky has been in every women's WarGames match in WWE. That's a hell of a stat. I don't think anybody would have dug into that or found that out, so good on Cole. He said it's Bayley's third WarGames match, and she has yet to win. And Bayley had, quote, war shaved on her head, and that would make for an interesting trip through customs, would it not? Ripley then wore a horned mask, and I guess she's cosplaying one of her tattoos, one of her 48,000 tattoos. And it's funny. I mean, hey, I got nothing against tattoos at all. I have 3 of them. But Rhea Ripley, I think it was a couple weeks ago, put on X or Instagram that she had gotten some new artwork done. And I'm like, looking at it, I'm like, where? Well, she's running out of real estate. I mean, I'm serious, if she got 5 new tattoos, unless they're on her face, no one would know. Like, no one know. Like, you just think of Rhea and you think tattoos. So again, it's just a objective observation that this is, when you get to the point where you have to point out you have a new tattoo on your body, if you didn't, no one would notice. I think you might have overdone it on the tattoos, but just my personal take on that. And anyway, so we got then Nia Jax coming out for her team. And then the entrances of Candice LeRae, Tiffany Stratton, Raquel, and Liv. And Cole noted that LeRae has been, quote, sneaky good by going 2-0 in WarGames matches. Man, Cole just digs into these stats that seem insignificant, and they seem like they're just something that no one would really care about, and they're little, like, just knowledge nuggets. But it makes you think, like, oh, cool. And as a fan, you're like, I would have never, ever known that. Cole is always educating us. So I would imagine it's him, and it's not the production team or the creative or anybody in management telling him to dig up stats. He just does it on his own, I would think. And I just love that stuff. Stuff that, there's so much content all the time, and so many matches that happen. We've seen as fans thousands of matches, and they just, most of the matches go in and out of your brain, and you're done because there's just too much content. And none of us are really thinking about this. So just a small point that I really wanted to make is just, I love stats like that. But okay. We then have the match. As predicted by me and many others, this WarGames match for the women happened first. And the first entrant here for both teams, Bayley and Jax, starting the match. And the crowd were chanting for Bayley. And the second entrant for the babyface team was Naomi. The second entrant for the heel team was Candice LeRae. The third entrant for the babyface team was Bianca Belair. And the third entrant for the heel team was Tiffany Stratton, who slammed a trash can on Belair's head and did a handspring elbow on Naomi, and Jax held up Belair, and Stratton jumped from the top rope, hit a blockbuster. Naomi hit Jax with some really just bad chair shots. And Naomi, look, I was excited when she came back to the Rumble last year, the year before, and I was hopeful they were going to have more for her to do. And we really got a bunch of nothing burger with her, other than, hey, let's put her with Jade and Bianca. And that's kind of it. She doesn't get any mic time almost ever. She's, let's be frank. I have nothing personal against her. She's not great in the ring. She's okay. At times like this, her chair shots were just weak. And she does have botches at times. This is not me picking on Naomi. I think she is a very good talent overall, but she does have some weaknesses that are sometimes very glaring. Okay, but moving on. The fourth entrant was Io Sky, who ran to the ring and searched under different sides of the ring before getting a painted trash can, and the trash can had a string attached to it. And Sky put the string strap over her shoulder and then climbed the cage and put the trash can on a small platform in the corner. LeRae climbed inside the cage to meet Sky, who fought off a superplex, and Sky went for a sunset bomb, but LeRae held on to the side of the cage, and Sky knocked LeRae down, hit her with a missile dropkick. Sky and Stratton showed off their gymnastic skills, and Sky then worked her over with a chair. The fourth entrant here was for Raquel Rodriguez. And let's see here. We got the fifth and final entrant for the babyface team, as you would imagine, the biggest babyface of the entire team, Rhea Ripley, who again had the horn mask. And Naomi hit a double rear view on Jackson Rodriguez. Not a fan of, it sounds like I'm crapping on Naomi, but just generally, I'm not a fan of her finish, the rear view. So her ass is apparently a weapon. It doesn't ever look good. It's also the softest part of your body. So I don't know how exactly that's supposed to be a weapon, but continuing, this is awesome chant broke out. Which I don't think was really warranted here, but the babyfaces then battered the heels with weapons, and LeRae cut them off with a weapon shot here, and Ripley used her mask as a weapon by hitting Jax with several headbutts. And the fifth and final entrant to the heel team was, you guessed it, Liv Morgan, and she showed a little bit of fear towards Rhea Ripley. She's playing off that kind of like, big mouth, but kind of low, not a lot of courage when you need it. Typical heel characteristic. And that's when WarGames began. 27 minutes and 50 seconds in. And that's when Ripley removed her scapegoat mask, and the heels ganged up on Ripley, held her arms out while Morgan hit her with repeated baseball bat shots. And this is where Sky climbed to the top with her painted trash can. Stratton climbed to the top on the other side. Sky then removed the string strap and put the trash can over her head and hit a moonsault onto a group of wrestlers below. And Stratton, on the other side, hit a swanton onto another group of women. And this is awesome chant broke out. Yes, it's a fun spot. I think that I've never seen that. So fun maneuver here, and it got the reaction that was desired by this spot. Crowd loved it. And then we got Stratton removing various objects from a trash can, and Stratton looked down at Morgan and Jax lying next to one another, and Rodriguez confronted Stratton. And that's when Io Sky came in with a fire extinguisher, and Rodriguez was handcuffed to the ropes by Ripley. And Jax then hit a Samoan drop, leg drop on Belair, and then Sky and Bayley broke it up. But let's get to the finish. So Ripley blocks Oblivion from the top rope and hits Morgan with Riptide from the top rope through the table, gets the 3 count. The babyfaces win in 38 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, was this WarGames match warranted? I don't know. I mean, they did need a counterpart for the women. They wouldn't dare have done a men's WarGames match without having a counterpart. But this was I think, an example of a WarGames match that didn't need to be a WarGames match outside of the fact they wanted to make sure the women had one. How you get a WarGames match organically come about is exactly what you did with the Bloodline. You have 2 groups that need to settle their differences instead of just a bunch of, kind of a somewhat random collection of babyfaces and heels together to quote unquote have a team put together to face one another when the real rivalry is between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and then everybody else is just kind of, they're side characters in the story. That's, it felt a little forced here, but I'm not complaining because we got, I think, a decent match despite what a lot of people had to say about this. I didn't hate it. I thought it was good. And there's that. So that's my take. I enjoyed the match. Okay. We then had the second match here of the night, LA Knight versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States Championship. I opened with the show with this a little bit, but let's dive into the specifics here of the match. No, I don't want to give you every move. Okay. I have the notes here. Of kind of a spot by spot, but I won't go through everything. So let's talk about some of the highlights here. We had a near fall here with Nakamura catching Knight with a back elbow. Nakamura then placed Knight over the top turnbuckle, hit him with a knee strike, and then Nakamura threw kicks at a kneeling Knight, who got up, hit Nakamura with a headshot, and then Knight dropped Nakamura with a DDT for a nice near fall. Somebody should bring back the DDT for a finish. I know Alexa Bliss had it for a while. Man, I miss the DDT as a finish. I just do. And there was a really egregious finish that I didn't like in the men's match that we'll get to with Roman and Solo, and you probably know what that one is. That it just unbelievably no reaction, and we'll get to it. So Knight slammed Nakamura face first to the mat for a near fall. Knight then placed Nakamura on the top turnbuckle and joined him on the ropes. Nakamura knocked off Knight, and Knight tried and failed to jump to the top rope, and then Nakamura slipped away and threw a kick to the back of Knight's head. We then had Knight going to the ropes. The crowd was somewhat quiet, and which was not great. And he had a top rope elbow. Knight set up for the finish, but Nakamura rolled to the space between the two rings, and then Knight joined Nakamura and hit a scorpion death drop onto the steel plate that covers the opening between the two rings. Both men blocked the suplex attempts, but Nakamura gouged Knight's eyes, and then he drilled Knight with a Kinshasa and got the victory in just a shade under 10 minutes to win the United States Championship. Crowd was a bit quiet during this one, especially during the match. And it's I don't know how concerning that really is. I think people aren't sure what to think of Nakamura at this point. Now that they have put a championship on him, perhaps the crowd will react a little bit more, a little bit more loudly to him, presumably in the booing role because he's a heel. But this it was a little concerning. I don't know if it's concerning for Knight. It was one match. He did lose. It doesn't matter. He lost in a very heelish way with Knight gouging the eyes and then hitting the Kinshasa and getting the victory. As I will say again, this does not hurt Knight. It helps Shinsuke, and it doesn't hurt Knight. If Knight had won, it doesn't help Knight, and it only hurts Shinsuke. So that's I think the only way to really look at this. I don't know how Knight is damaged by this. I think he'll bounce back, and I would imagine he'll get another shot at the championship, whether it is at the next PLE or they just do it on SmackDown. They're certainly not shy of doing any kind of championship match on the TV shows, so that's very possible. But I don't expect Shinsuke and LA Knight to last too much longer. The question, though, is for me, the bigger picture for LA Knight is, where does he go next? Does he dare venture into the WWE Undisputed Championship picture? How does that work with Cody Rhodes? I know that right now it's not about Cody or LA Knight. No one's really talking about that. The Rock is going to come back and he is going to challenge Cody Rhodes. That he was very clear about in April. And so that's going to happen. So before anybody even considers beating Cody Rhodes, you have to get to The Rock and Cody, because that's the match you said you were going to get to for the championship back in April. So that's how I look at it. And so I think what's going to happen is LA Knight will lose the rematch or rematches to Shinsuke. And then he'll go off and have maybe a personal program with somebody leading into the Rumble. He'll enter the Rumble. He'll be one of the final 4 or final 6 entrants or remaining men in the match. And he might have a couple of moments where you're like, oh my God, could he actually win this thing? Do I think he's gonna? The answer is hell no. And I hate to say that because I think LA Knight winning would shock the world. And there's more to LA Knight than we've even seen. I think we have yet to see the best of LA Knight if they give him that shot. But unfortunately, if you're an LA Knight fan, The Rock looming in the background is a massive, massive cloud. I don't know if it's a dark cloud or whatever you want to call it, depending on how you look at it. I think it's just, it means Cody's holding the championship until further notice is what it means. And Cody Rhodes and LA Knight is also a potential concern for Cody, because if they're worried about him ever turning heel, I think it's a subset of fans that would cheer for LA Knight and boo Cody, because there's a lot of fans that want to see LA Knight as champion, that many felt a couple of years ago when things really caught fire for him that he should have been champion, and it was all derailed by the story with Cody and Roman. Anyway, I'm going off on a massive tangent, but my bigger question is for LA Knight. What do you guys think LA Knight's going to be doing after he presumably loses a couple of rematches to Shinsuke for the U.S. title? Where does he go? What's next for LA Knight is really what I'm thinking beyond the rematches. All right, let's continue into the final, or not the final, the final few matches here. Braun Breaker versus Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser in a triple threat for the Intercontinental title. I was totally wrong here. Totally wrong. I got this one wrong. There was a moment when you thought that Ludwig would possibly win here, and I was like, oh my God, maybe he will. He pulled out Sheamus towards the end when he hit a brogue kick on Breaker, and it ultimately was not fruitful. We all know what the finish was. But this was still, I thought, a really good match. And let's go through some of the details. We had Kaiser wedge a chair between the ropes, only to turn around and flinch once he saw both guys waiting for him. And that's when Breaker and Sheamus just beat up on Kaiser. Sheamus threw him over the rope and sent up for the 10 beats. But then Braun Breaker broke it up and clotheslined Sheamus, who ended up at ringside. Breaker went to ringside and then set up to charge Sheamus, but Kaiser caught him with a sliding kick, and then Kaiser kicked Sheamus against the ropes, and Breaker came back, hit a shoulder block on Kaiser. Getting deeper into the match here, this match, by the way, it went 14 minutes. So here's some of the final parts of the match. Sheamus hit the Celtic Cross and covered Breaker for a near fall. A short time later, Sheamus then hit a brogue kick on Breaker and had him beat, but Kaiser pulled the referee out. Sheamus rolled out of the ring, charged Kaiser, who battered him repeatedly with the shillelagh, and both men returned to the ring. Sheamus drilled Kaiser with a knee strike and fell on him for the pin, but Kaiser kicked out at 2. And Sheamus set up for a brogue kick, but he sold his ribs. Kaiser put Sheamus down. Sheamus hoisted up Kaiser, who hit his injured ribs, and then Kaiser put Sheamus down again. Breaker came out of nowhere to spear Kaiser. Breaker followed up with a spear on Sheamus and got the victory. So that was the moment here where Kaiser was possibly going to get a victory here of Sheamus, with the shillelagh, the whole shillelagh segment, and then, of course, you got Breaker coming in and getting spear victory to retain. Now, the one positive, if you're looking for a Kaiser breakout, and I was for this particular match, the one positive you can hold on to is, yeah, he got speared. He didn't win, but he didn't lose. Okay, meaning he didn't get pinned. That's significant. That is significant because him getting pinned would have, I think, brought things down, really let the air out of the balloon for Kaiser, where you think he's going to be elevated in the coming months, given the events of the last really several months for him. It would have been a bit deflating, and this is not deflating for Kaiser. If anything, it's a slight bump up. It would have been a massive bump up, obviously, if he won the Intercontinental title, but the fact that he wasn't the one to take the pinfall and somebody who's a legacy star does tell you they're trying to protect Kaiser a little bit here, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I really, I'm encouraged by this, even though he didn't win, because whoever takes the pinfall is the guy that was obviously in a triple threat, the number 3 man on the totem pole. You got 2 young guys that they're trying to build around. You know, Sheamus has no shot, even though he's a big star. He's arguably, I mean, not even arguably, he just is a bigger star than both of those guys combined in terms of brand name brand value. And he's the one that takes the fall. It's a big deal. So this was, again, encouraging. And you know what? This match was, I thought the match was fine. And Breaker getting the victory and retaining, I'm not angry about it. I mean, I think that this title needs a little stability after its tumultuous last couple of months with Breaker having it, giving it back to Jay giving it back to Breaker. It needs a little stability in its life. And I think that right now it's not it's a good choice. I'm only upset because I selfishly did not make the right pick. All right. Moving on to the next match here. And by the way, I think this might have been the best match on the card, arguably, to some, this triple threat. We have Gunther and Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. I have to give myself a round of applause. If I had a round of applause soundbite, I'd play it. But just because it's exactly how I'd imagine it playing out, including who would interfere and how. And also the right man won. Absolutely the right man won. Damian Priest did fine in this matchup. Gunther and Damian do have some nice chemistry together. This is a one and done, though, given that it's going to be now moving to Priest and Finn Balor and we'll get to that in a second here. So let's dive into the nitty gritty of the match. We have Gunther put Priest in a sleeper, power bombed him for a 2 count, and then a short time later, Priest caught Gunther on the ropes, pulled him off with a Hurricane Rana. Priest followed up with a Razor's Edge and covered Gunther for a near fall. And that was a nice one here. And we had then Gunther hit Priest with a short arm clothesline. And then another one. And then he went for a third, but Priest ducked it and dropped Gunther with a clothesline of his own. And Priest went up top and was cut off when Gunther bounced onto the ropes. And Priest grabbed him by the throat. Gunther fought that off, went for a suplex. And then Priest held the rope and shoved Gunther to the mat. And Priest fell to the floor and sold his shoulder. That's when Finn Balor comes out, jumps the ring steps, hits Priest with a coup de grace. Gunther went to ringside, and then he hit Balor with a boot. Yes, Gunther attacks Finn, who was attacking Priest. That was interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen a heel attack a heel that was helping him. I know it wasn't really about helping Gunther as much as it was punishing Priest, but that was kind of funny. I mean, I even heard people in the crowd laughing. I was just like, what? It was very interesting. I don't hate it. I thought it was entertaining. But Gunther then brought Priest back inside the ring, hit a power bomb, threw some elbow strikes at Priest, and then locked him in a submission hold, and Priest faded, and the referee called for the bell. 20 minutes long, nearly. The right person won. I still don't like that Gunther needs quote-unquote help. Otherwise, maybe he wouldn't be standing as world champion today. I want a more dominant, no intimidation possible for Gunther. No one can intimidate Gunther. The only person that I think that could go face-to-face with Gunther, where Gunther for the first time may be intimidated, is if Brock Lesnar were to come back. And as we thought last year would happen, and it was slated to happen until the whole scandal came out with Brock Lesnar's name being mentioned and all that, that could have been the moment when you're like, oh my God, Gunther's actually intimidated by somebody that actually can go toe to toe with him, is as physical or more physical than him. That's when you bring out the possible, moments of intimidation for the Gunther character, not to Damian Priest. Nothing against Damian, but it just doesn't fit the Gunther character. However, the match did start a little slow, but I think it picked up well. Perfect finish. And you now go to Finn and Damian, and it's one-on-one. These two have a hell of a date here at the next PLE, or maybe on Raw. Maybe they just finish it on Raw. But this was a great way to kind of reignite that program that had cooled off for a while. All right. We then have the broadcast team here hyping Saturday night's main event for December 14th on NBC. And they hyped the finals of the Women's U.S. Championship Tournament and Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens for the WWE Championship. And they also listed the following from Monday's Raw tomorrow night: the 10-year anniversary of the New Day, which, by the way, Big E was kind of quiet about on the panel there with Kathy Kelly. I forget. Jackie Redmond. I think it was Jackie Redmond, Wade Barrett, and Big E. But the 10-year anniversary of the New Day and the start of the Women's Intercontinental Championship Tournament. So, a lot happening tomorrow night on Raw, with hopefully the implosion of the New Day, with Xavier turning heel, maybe the return of Big E. I mean, Big E's going to be there, but the question is he actually ready to compete? Is he truly cleared to compete? Or is he back for a one-off to take a couple of bumps where Xavier just pummels both guys and goes off finally to be a solo act and hopefully be a big star? Maybe that's what he's there for. Maybe Big E doesn't take any bumps and leaves the ring. I think the best way to do this, if I was to lay this out, is kind of a festival of friendship type of Chris Jericho KO moment from several years back, where Xavier just claims that everything's good. He's doing inside jokes. He's saying, I got hot-headed last week. All is well. They're doing their dance. He brings in the trombone. It's just like old times. And it's like 20 minutes long. I mean, I don't care if it's 25 minutes long, whatever it takes. I don't care if it's, an hour and 59 minutes long until the end of the show. As long as we get the implosion of the New Day, I just don't care how long it takes. I've been waiting 10 years anyway, about 9.5. I was a fan for about 6 months. So this is how I would do it. I would have that. I would have Xavier just like, all is well, I'm sorry. Very, very convincing that he's, you know, kind of made amends and said, you know, I've just had a bad streak lately, and everything that you would say if you were truly apologetic. Maybe even getting some of the crowd to buy in. And then that's when he turns. One of them or both of them turn their back, and if it's safe, you have Xavier attack Big E, and not just attack Big E or attack Kofi even, but he goes for the neck of Big E. Maybe wraps a chair around it. He's about to just try to snap the neck of Big E with a chair around his neck. And that's when Kofi makes the save just in time. But the intentions were there to snap the neck of Big E. But then he does the same thing to Kofi where, okay, he saved Big E, but now Kofi's going to suffer that fate. So he kind of takes a bullet for Big E, and he gets the chair wrapped around his neck. Xavier, you know, jumps on off the top rope or second rope and stomps on the chair, trying to snap the neck of Kofi, and the segment ends. That's how I would do it. You know, at the very end, he's trying to just be you got to go for broke. This is a massive turn for a group for 10 years they've been together. You can't flub this. You can't make it soft or ambiguous of like, oh, he kind of turned, or he punched Kofi in the face and left. No. You go for broke on this moment. There's not too many groups that last a couple of years, much less 10. You go totally balls to the wall on this. And then you got to make him look like he's actually trying to kill Big E, and then does the same to Kofi. That's how you do this. But what do I know? All right. So then we have Sami Zayn wearing a Sami Uso t-shirt. Cole said Sami was 2-0 in WarGames matches after, of course, all the heels come out. And then Roman comes out. He walks over to the heel cage, holds up his index finger, and then Reigns slapped the hands and did the bro hugs with Zayn and Jimmy, and just looked at Punk. The four wrestlers entered the shark cage, and the referee locked the door. Really a fun segment here with just the tension is palpable between especially Roman and Punk. And so the match starts here, or really it doesn't, because it doesn't start till everyone's in the ring, which is, again, ridiculous. But we had Tama Tonga and Jey Uso start the match, and the heel team had the quote-unquote imaginary advantage. And then the crowd chanted for the various babyface wrestlers who were in the shark cage. And the second entrant for the heel team was Bronson Reed. He slid several chairs in the ring, and Jay picked up the chairs, tossed them at Reed until Reed swatted one out of the air, and they took turns splashing Jay in the corner. We then had Jimmy come out, who entered the ring without bringing any weapons, which is just weird. But Jimmy then caught both opponents with kicks, and then Jimmy hit a corkscrew moonsault, and we had Reed into the cage. And the third entrant as for the heel team was Jacob Fatu. Tonga Loa thought he was next, but Sikoa put his hand on Loa's shoulder and then mentioned for Fatu to go to the cage. Jacob entered the ring and worked over both Usos. A FU solo chant then broke out, and Reed and Fatu held up Jay by his arms, and then Tonga pushed his legs so that he flipped over and landed on his back in the ring. We then had Sami Zayn come out. CM Punk was going to storm out of the cage. Here's a fun moment. But Roman put his arm up to block him, and then he nodded to Zayn. So that was in a moment of like, no, I'm still in control here. Even though they all said that they wanted to be treated as equals by Roman, right? Remember that when they all came back together? All of a sudden, Roman's still calling the shots. So I don't want any feuds with any of these guys. Yes, Punk and Roman are an exception, but Punk's not a part of the bloodline, so we'll get there. And yes, we do wonder what the favor of Punk is from Paul Heyman. It's probably going to be a match with Roman in some capacity. It has to be. It's got to be a match with Roman Reigns. I mean, I would think that's the favor. What else could it possibly be? Maybe a world title shot. I mean, like, I don't know what he is trying to get from Paul Heyman that he couldn't just do himself. But it is intriguing to think about what Paul Heyman's favor is going to be, or Punk's favor of Paul Heyman. So, all right. We had Fatu catch a diving Zayn, but Jimmy super kicked Fatu, and Jimmy and Zayn did their handshake and then hugged. Crowd loved it. Another Sammy Uso chant broke out, and then the fourth entrant for the heel team was Tonga Loa. He comes sliding in here of the tables inside the cage. A CM Punk chant broke out. Fatu hit a split-legged moonsault on Jay, and then the heels dominated the babyface to set the table for the next entrance, which was CM Punk. And then CM Punk comes out, and Fatu, Reed, and Tonga waited for Punk in the ring. Punk stood on the steps and looked back at Reigns, who shook his head. Punk dropped off the steps, and the crowd kind of gasped. And then Punk grabbed a toolbox from under the ring and brought it inside the cage and used it as a weapon. Punk hit Fatu with knees, in his knees in the corner, and then bulldogged him on the top of the toolbox. Fatu shot right up, and Punk was hit with a Samoan drop. So then we get Solo Sikoa, and he turned and told Reigns that he was about to show him who the tribal chief was, and he slammed the cage door on Zayn and everybody else, and Fatu then performed a moonsault. Reed hit the tsunami on Zayn. Punk got up and went after the heels, but he was immediately outnumbered and put down, and Sikoa was used his own lock and chain. And that's when Roman Reigns comes out, and Roman found a loose part of the cage and climbed inside of it after they had locked the cage. And that was kind of a cool moment. And Reigns fought off Reed and dove from the ropes onto all the heels and hit them with punches one by one. Reigns helped Zayn and the Usos get to his feet, but he declined to do the same for Punk, who got upset. And the match started at 30 minutes and 35 seconds. We had, let's see here, the Sikoa hit Reigns with a Samoan spike and covered him, but the Usos broke it up with a super kick. Fatu ate some super kicks, and the Usos hit a 1D on Fatu, who was able to run the ropes. And Jay set up the table while Jimmy stood on the ropes, and Jay speared Tonga Loa. And then Zayn took out Loa with a blue Thunder Bomb. And we then have Jimmy climb to the top of the cage with Usos splashing Fatu through the table. All 10 men were down, and Heyman was shown smiling. Zayn got back to his feet and then pulled Jimmy and Jay up. They went to the other ring when the fans chanted, "This is awesome," and Zayn pulled up Punk while the Usos pulled up Reigns. And then the OG Bloodline surrounded Sikoa, and a UF'd up chant broke out. Sikoa said he's still the tribal chief. The Usos hit double super kicks on Sikoa. Zayn hit him with a haluva kick. Punk hit Sikoa with a GTS, and then Reigns speared him and got the victory in 41 minutes and 55 seconds. I thought this was a fun match. Now, after it, the Usos and Zayn shook hands. We did have Punk and Roman shake hands, and that was interesting. That it's kind of telling fans we're not ready for this program yet, but it's coming. This was a very hard-fought match, crazy spots. I mean, there's nothing really that happened in this match that you went, oh my god, other than locking the cage, which was kind of cool, and Roman finding a way in. Everybody hit their spots. Solo got exactly what he deserved. It's what everyone has been waiting for, is everyone hits their finish on Solo, including the final finish of Roman getting the spear and the victory. So we got exactly what we'd hoped for if you're looking for Solo to finally get his. And he did. The problem is nothing is on the line here. It's not like it's, whoever wins is going to be anointed the tribal chief. There's nothing on the line. It's all about pride and dominance. That's it. So I don't know if this program will continue. I would think it does. And also, where does this go with the bloodline, the OG bloodline? What happens here? Who are they going to maintain their reunion? How long? And if so, where does Punk fit in? Does Punk just go to Raw? I think Punk does. In fact, I think Punk and Gunther are still on the table, as Gunther now needs an opponent, because Punk tried to go after the world title before Drew McIntyre went after him several months ago. And where the hell's Drew McIntyre too, by the way? Drew McIntyre's lurking out there. You got to think about Drew, who could make an appearance in the coming weeks. But this match, I thought, was well done. It was well structured. The right team won. Yes, there was no Seth Rollins. I was totally wrong about that. He did not make any kind of appearance. which was, again, kind of weird that you left Seth Rollins off of Survivor Series when you have Bronson Reed in a match that he could easily interfere with no DQ and attack Bronson Reed, maybe, again, stomp Punk, and they didn't go that road. Now, I talked a bit earlier about the one issue I had with the match, and that is, it's an issue I have just continuously across the board with matches these days, is the lack of respect for finishes. When Solo hit the Samoan spike on Roman, and Roman just kind of casually kicked out, this is emblematic of where today's product is with finishes, which again is just a complete lack of respect for them. The announcers didn't go crazy over it. They barely even acknowledged that he kicked out of a finish. The crowd was just like, yeah, he's going to kick out. They didn't react in a way that, would warrant a kick out of a finish or should warrant the kick out of a finish. It's gotten to the point where like people don't even the announcers aren't excited about a finish being hit, because even the announcers know that it's not going to be just one that takes the match or will end the match. I mean, go back and watch it. The Samoan spike to Roman, 1, 2, and Roman kicks out, and the crowd just goes, yeah, well, of course he does. Like it's ridiculous. This is where we're at now. This is where we're at, is the finishes have become, a fraction of what they used to be, where again, 2 has your attention. 3 is where usually how much it takes for especially a big time match, how many times it takes to end it. But we've gotten to the point where nobody's even reacting to one kick out of a finish anymore. It's not a good spot to be. And you have Solo at the end take 4 finishes, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, that's got to do it, right? Because you've hit that magic number of over 2. Now, it was also warranted in the story because everyone got their piece of Solo, which was fine. But it's also still an issue that it takes multiple finishes to finish a match. So I'll end my little soapbox there, but it's the one little fly in the ointment for me. I did not expect, nor did I want, a breakdown of Punk and Roman. Doesn't fit right now with the trajectories both men are on. Punk, yes, is ultimately headed to Seth with possibly a pit stop with Gunther. We have Roman on the warpath with probably The Rock. But if Roman doesn't face The Rock, you do wonder what the hell Roman's doing at WrestleMania. So Seth and Punk, Roman, maybe, and Rock. You have Cody and hopefully Randy at WrestleMania. At least that's how I'm looking at it. 4 months out now, 4.5 months out. So we got time. But now here's the fun part. We've gotten to that time of year where the next big event that we're really looking forward to is Royal Rumble, which is the official start to WrestleMania. So we're already back here, guys. I know it's not officially the road to WrestleMania. We're not officially on the road, but I can see the road. I'm not on it, but I can look on the horizon, and it's not too far in the distance. I'm like, oh, there it is. I see it, guys. There it is. There it is. There's the road to WrestleMania, and you can start to already fantasy book, and that's the fun part. It's going to be that real fun time of year, guys, and we're here. So we'll see what happens on Raw. Again, my final grade for this event, number wise, I'd give it probably a 7 out of 10. Or if you're equating it like a B-, C+ range in terms of an event. Some of the matches weren't a lot of fun. Some of them were slow. Some of you guys really hated the event. I mean, at least the first half. Some of you gave it like a 2 out of 10 to start, and then the rest of it you said were like a 6.5 out of 10. I didn't dislike it as much as some of you did. Yes, the lack of returns always hurts when you're thinking of Rock or Seth or somebody interfering, or Brock Lesnar or Drew McIntyre, somebody coming back or interfering, and you're just like, oh, especially on one of the big 4 events, it does leave a sense of disappointment in your mind. But still a fun event to be at, and I know that many of you watching at home could have maybe gone. I know we have a lot of Canadian fans, and if you did, I wonder what your in-person thoughts were. You can always send it to me. Send it to me, mailbag@wwepodcast.com, and I'll read it on our mailbag show. So check it out and or email me. So there it is. There's your WarGames Survivor Series /Survivor Series review. Decent event. One that, again, left a lot to be desired if you like returns, but one that I think was very heavy on the effort side, more botches than usual. And well, I hope Chris Jericho's not listening. That's like a naughty word to Chris Jericho is botches. So he has an issue with that. He's on the record of saying that he really hates when fans say botch. Just go YouTube it. It annoys him. So here you go, Chris. Botch. How about that? Yeah, I know. All right. Well, that's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast is the way to go. You can also head to patreon.com/The War on Truth. If you want to hear me talk about other stuff other than wrestling, that's the place to go. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And we will be back on a Tuesday for the Raw review, one that I think is going to be very consequential for the start of the Women's IC Championship tournament, for the implosion of the New Day, hopefully, and a lot more, including hopefully the reveal of Gunther's next opponent, because we have Saturday night's main event, and maybe we'll know at least a couple weeks in advance if he's going to be on the event defending the championship. So thanks everybody for listening. I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.